Hi, and welcome to Comics from the Arc for the week of July 10th, 2024. We're back and we're discussing our picks for this week. And again, we'll probably get sidetracked because when haven't we? Uh, Devin, what did you pick this week?
Well, this week I kind of went back to one of the ones I'd done last month, which was Call to the Lamb. Number two came out of that. It's one of those multiple books where they're basically doing it based off of video games. You're not only seeing comics at this point. I mean, obviously you have, the relatively successful Fallout series. And I'm not all the way done with it yet, but I'm happy with it so far, especially having played the games pretty religiously almost. Um, but yeah, Call to the Lamb still a game I need to try because even after getting through the first one and now through the second one, it still intrigues me where it's headed. Um, I did do a little bit of research because I was kind of curious, how close to the game it was kind of tracking. I guess there's a lot more going on within the comic book, and so it doesn't track really dead on with the game itself. So I guess you know, while there's definitive crossover points, it's not a just taking
Straight
it through.
translation.
Yeah, it's not just taking you point A to point B to point C through the game in a comic book form.
When did the
Um,
game come out?
Game 4 or 5 years ago, something,
Okay. Well, I asked
3 years
because I
ago.
wasn't sure if it was an old enough game where they didn't have the capability of
Oh no,
structuring and
no.
layering.
It's new enough. It's kind of like High on Life. It's new enough that they're able to do that kind of stuff. Um, the second issue here, really focuses on the building of the followers themselves, that are working on building the idol to the lamb, and then of course the lamb's escapades, going out and dealing with the old gods, and you know getting and attracting more followers. Obviously with more followers comes more power, and there's some interesting takeaways out of this. That make you look at just doing something because it's supposed to be done. There's a really great little section of it, and so they built this statue to the lamb, and it's they're supposed to bask in its glory and sleep in its shadow, and this and that. And they all start getting sick because it's cold out, and they're gonna it's bad weather and one thing after another. And one of the followers is trying to get people to come in, and or other characters to come in. And there's one of us like, no, this is what we're supposed to do. It's like they actually have a back and forth, basically discussing. You're gonna die, right? And so it makes you kind of look at a blind faith versus faith in something that has been seen versus the gathering of a people that are going to follow you and worship you. It's definitive where you see the lamb turning more and more toward the evil side, as it progresses. Obviously, with great power comes great, well,
I was actually going with a
greediness.
different one. Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Well, you see, this isn't really an absolute power, but it's just enough power that you have to be able to rein in on yourself, which the lamb is not doing.
Well, and the more power you get, the more corrupt you get.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And that's where they're looking at there's instances in the book where the lamb is betrayed by people that have devoted their lives to following the lamb, and so on and so forth, and they explain as to why. And it's all about putting together the commandments, and then when the Lamb returns with the new followers after dealing with the old gods and so on and so forth. What was supposed to be a house becomes basically a temple where the Lamb sits on a throne and is worshipped. And so it's kind of showing how everything is escalating way beyond what some of the initial followers really wanted, which was a simple life with somebody that with somebody that is going to protect them. So and I'm sure there's a ton of other backstories going on with it too. I highly recommend it. It's kind of like Looney Tunes. Every time you watch the episode again, you're going to pick up something else minor. Same thing, Futurama is the same way.
Right.
Just some of the little backwards lines that you don't even think of initially, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, that was amazing. So, and they're doing the kind of the same thing here, especially with, kind of the idol stuff and, idol worship. They flat out call it out multiple times.
Well, and I was having a hard time putting my finger on what the artwork reminded me of last time. And looking at this just completely out of the blue, it occurred to me that it reminds me of the cartoon Gumball.
It's very similar to Gumball.
It's
There's a couple of the characters that actually I think they were probably lifted right off the pages.
Probably. But it's got that nice rounded, cuddly type of appearance.
Yeah. I'm kind of reading it from the standpoint of, like you were saying, the cute and cuddly, but it's on Adult Swim.
Right.
This is Snuggle Bear. So, but yeah, I recommend the book. Artwork, I enjoy the simplistic of the simplistic artwork they're using. They're not trying to pretty it up or anything. Keeping really it's a pretty flat like comic strip style drawing that you'd expect in pretty much any Sunday morning paper.
But by having that cute art with this kind of dark story,
yeah,
it proves kind of a balancing act, because it's like you go in looking at it with this visual.
Well, and not only that, but with what you're talking about there, they go as far as like whenever the Lamb is talking, everybody else is having pretty much normal text bubbles. The Lamb's text bubbles are black with white writing, though. It's inverted, and it's showing off the darkness in the text bubble. So, regardless of whether the Lamb's saying something good, bad, or indifferent, it's still a black text bubble. So they're taking a few things into account. It's pretty fun to see the little details like that come into play. So, but yeah, that's about what I had for the week. Outside of that, we're still working for getting everything set for we got obviously Jason Faunt on July 19th, and the big news of the week on that one was he got cast to play Batman 89 for the Bat in the Sun Productions Batman 89 versus Shredder 90. So that's going to be kind of fun. I'm looking forward to that, although it's a pretty cut and dry to me. And Shredder 90, pretty deep-powered character. The movie one, nothing really going on there, and it's pretty much it's a hands down going to the Keaton Batman at that point, in my opinion.
Well, in
or
the Ninja Turtle movie,
the Jason Faunt Batman,
right. But if you look at Shredder in the first live-action Turtle movie, which is the Shredder that they're going for on this, he didn't do anything super elaborate. We're not talking Jackie Chan type of flipping and what have you. He didn't do that in the movie.
Yeah.
But he took on all four turtles, and he was able to parry, thrust, and attack and what have you. Whereas if you look at Keaton's Batman, that he did do fight sequences, but
Yeah.
again, it wasn't one of these elaborate, high action
Well, it's
fights.
because Batman '89 was based on the idea of watching for the exact moment to actually move. Like you stand stoic until you see your opening.
Isn't that what Shredder did though when he was fighting the turtles?
Not really, because he was a lot more offensive. Which I mean, granted, you got that with the Keaton Batman too. The scene where it's actually anybody that says Batman doesn't kill, I point them to this scene actually. Um, he's going down the rooftop and he's dealing, with the henchmen. And one of the henchmen has basically has a bomb that gives to him, and he tries, Keaton tries to punch him, and the guy just kind of laughs him off, and ends up guy punches him back, and then Keaton kind of smiles and looks down. The guy looks down, and he's basically shoved this bomb in the guy's waistband, and then throws him off the roof, and you see the explosion in the background. Granted, you never see the actual guy die. Like he could have grabbed it and thrown it or something like that, maybe. But let's call it what it is. You know, he wasn't planning on that guy escaping that situation. Batman did intentionally go for mortal harm at that point.
Well, originally when Batman came out, he had a gun and he actually
Yep.
did kill people. They changed it over time, so you could argue that alternate universe version, this is kind of one that blurred the lines a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, and even at that, you very rarely saw him kill. In all actuality, he 9 times out of 10 went for the non-lethal. That he went for the Dr. Heller moves.
Right. Well, and it was also, if you're in my way, I need to get rid of you quickly. And if that guy had armor and protection and what have you, that it was going to draw out a fight, he was looking for the quickest.
The dude was wearing like a shirt and some pants, man. This was not. I mean, the dude was formidable. He was a big guy. It's kind of like the few times where they show Keaton get up against that guy that he is looking up like that. It is one of those situations. But yeah, no, we're not talking like probably a drawn out anything. I mean, he could have very easily gone with the same move, throwing him off the roof, but without shoving a bomb in his pants.
Fair enough.
So, um,
Or there's
point
got to be
being,
some type of taser or spray or something
yeah.
that.
Point being, yeah. Well, that brings up my next point. I mean, somewhere in the bat belt there has got to be shredder repellent. So,
Wrong version. That's 66.
I love that stuff so much. But yeah,
Well, and some of those productions, like I saw the Wolverine Predator one that they did, and the
yeah.
Batman Darth Vader one. Um, those, for what they were, I was blown away
Oh yeah.
by the amount of detail and the level of sophistication they got for this. And if any bit of this catches on, it could lead to bigger and better things.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and let's take a look at they're doing the release of the Legend of the White Dragon this fall. That's coming from Jason's playing in that one as well. And let me tell you, I was actually very happy with kind of the direction it seems to go. It is not a continuation of Power Rangers. It's not a continuation of really anything else from what I understand. Everything that what I'm understanding though is kind of leading me to believe this is a movie based on what we as 40, 30, 40, and 50-year olds need our Power Rangers to be today. Like it's not them, but we need them a little grittier. We need a little bit more darkness to it. It can't be just over
PG.
the top. Yeah, over the top PG all the time. We're looking for a little bit more Dark Knight, a little less yeah, yeah.
Something a little more grounded in reality.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's be fair. This one's not necessarily grounded in reality
Well,
necessarily anyway, because you're still dealing with the White Dragon, basically.
but I'm saying that they kind of lived in the Riverdale bubble where everything was sweet and friendly and everybody tried and what have you, and
Yeah, and
that's
where
not
they
exactly how the world works.
yeah, and where they made Riverdale grow up, through the multiple shows and even the new comic books are getting a lot grittier. Take a look at the Archie horror stuff. I mean, that stuff's getting
Yeah,
pretty.
the Archie Predator one, where Predator like eviscerates,
Yeah,
it's like holy cow! I can't believe they had that in an Archie
yeah.
book. But
So I
get 'em!
mean, we're starting to see, they're updating our youth force. I mean, years ago, we got to see the off Broadway. I mean, I brought this up before, the Pee Wee Herman show.
Right.
The stage show that is most definitely made for people that are no longer watching Saturday morning cartoon. Okay,
But the people who did at one point,
yeah, the ones that got up at 6 a.m. in the '80s, and so I think it looks like they've done a good job. Kind of keeping the same premise, yet giving us a great new storyline. I'm kind of excited to watch it and see what exactly it is. Like I said, I haven't dug too deep because when it comes to the movies and shows that I watch, I don't like knowing too much going in. I'd rather be able to, kind of form my own opinion
right?
once I actually sit down and watch it. It's kind of why I stuck my fingers in my ear for, oh geez, probably a year and a half while I waited to watch the Ghostbusters that released on, what was it, like Netflix or Hulu or whatever it was.
Right.
Yeah, the Afterlife, wasn't it? Yeah, because Frozen Empire is the theater one.
Correct.
Okay.
Actually, it's now on DVD. So
Oh, good deal. That means I will be able to finally watch it and stop throwing things at people when they bring it up.
on that note, I did have a guy come in and he was talking about it and he was excited and he was it's like, well, I don't mean to spoil parts of the movie for you, but and and he kind of verbally raped me.
Oh no.
And so it's like, oh, I didn't need to hear that. And, oh God, it's like, because I am very much a spoiler sensitive person. I don't
Yeah.
like because there were so many times where I had gone into a movie and it's like I know what's gonna happen or I know key strokes throughout the movie
Yeah.
and it's like, well, that kind of took away some of the excitement, the anticipation, or even the surprise at having it. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
and
well,
there's not very many that transcend that where you go back to it over and over and over again where, like I'll be the first to admit, that first 1989 Batman was one of them. God, I saw that thing at least twice a week for most of the summer, I think.
I remember I had bought. They put out the collector cards for the movie
Yep.
before the movie came out, and I started just buying them left, right, center, and they would have different lines from the movie on the back of the card.
Yeah.
And I had read those cards so much that on opening weekend, I went with my best friend, and we're sitting in the movie theater. And when Joker's like, where does he get those wonderful toys? And stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was finishing the line in the movie as
Oh,
it was
right on.
airing for the very first time, and my friend was looking at me like I had psychic powers. He's like,
like
how are
ESP.
you doing this?
Oh god. Well, and what's funny is it's not just the superhero movies. It's like that one, and then Some Kind of Wonderful is one of them. I just got to break it out about once a year.
Well, and the way they do commercials anymore,
Yeah.
a lot of the best parts of the movie are in the commercial, and then you're just seeing how they stitch it together when you go to the movie theater.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think that's talking so much toward what they're doing with commercials as much as the writing, the writing ability, I guess, or it's probably not even that. It's just you can only do things so many times before there's a creative cap that starts getting run into. You know, it's kind of like a glass ceiling of entertainment. I mean,
Well, like, how many Jaws movies did they have? And ultimately, it's like, okay, there's a shark out here. What do we do?
you
Stay
run
out of
into
the
the
water.
basement where you hear the chainsaw fire up. That's what you do.
However, like Deadpool and Wolverine coming up, I am so excited to see that. I have a feeling that even though I've seen, a lot of the commercials, and I know that certain people are going to be in the movie and they're going to touch on some of the other Fox movies
Yeah.
that haven't been touched upon. I'm so looking forward to it, and even though I know that there are going to be people popping up that they haven't had in the commercials, I'm still excited to see it because I have to know how this plays out.
Yeah.
And with the character breaking the fourth wall, just because you know what's going to happen doesn't mean you don't know how he's going to react or how he's going to play to the camera. And half of the beauty of those movies has been the improvised lines and the hamming it up
Yeah.
and the wink nods to the camera. It's beautiful.
Well, and I don't know. I think I need to take a look at what movies are coming out because there's very few that, had been kind of, piquing my interest. So I kind of stopped looking for a while. Went back to watching the old movies and stuff like that, and like watching some of the weird ones too. Like, man, I have been watching some really, really bad movies lately. Like, I watched Suburban Commando the other day.
Oh my god.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm going down some rabbit holes, man.
Incidentally, if you have never seen Suburban Commando, find a copy, watch it, and just know that one of the henchmen for the bad guy is this unknown guy by the name of Mark Calloway.
Yep.
And if you know, you know. But the first time I saw it, I had no idea who that is. And then when you go back and you watch it, you're like, oh my god! Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of those movies that had even one wrestler in them. I mean, there was so many in there. And that was really the rabbit hole I started going down. Was I was watching movies that had wrestlers in it. You
So
know,
did you watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2?
no, I haven't gotten to that one yet. I did watch No Holds Barred recently, though, with Zeus. That was just as horrible as I remembered it being, but it was still wonderful, wonderful in its horribleness. I watched They Live, of course. You
Oh
gotta
my
watch
god.
that. Um,
That's essential viewing right
oh
there.
yeah, well, I mean, you got John Carpenter, you got Roddy Piper, playing one of the main characters, and you got
Keith
a
David.
phenomenal fight scene that lasts forever.
Well, and what I love about that fight sequence is the realism behind it.
Yeah.
In action movies, someone gets hit, they fall down, and they hop back up. And in this movie, by the end, they're struggling to get to their feet, and they're wobbly, and they're tired and sore, and you could tell that.
Yeah.
It gave it so much realism that has never been revisited.
Well, and part of it was because they outside of the fight scene in Any Which Way But Loose, I mean, there's not a whole lot of them that have, any type of street fight that lasts on that kind of,
Level.
well, that kind of duration even. I mean, because I mean, Any Which Way But Loose, when they were fighting through Jackson Hole, I mean, that was a pretty solid long fight, and that was a pretty good one too. Um, definitely not to the level of acting that we had, weirdly enough, from, like I said, Roddy Piper. I mean, but let's face it, they were professional wrestlers. They were professional wrestlers for a reason. They had the right look and they had the ability to act. And holy crap, I burned my leg. Completely off topic there. I mowed the lawn today, and so yeah, you're going to hear me randomly talk about I just burned my leg. Holy crap. So
The glow from his leg is actually being offset by computer graphics now, because otherwise it would completely whitewash the video.
well, I ran my hand past there, and I can feel the heat from it. So yeah, that's gonna leave a mark.
Well, and I've made this argument before in comic books. You know, when we had the original Weapon X storyline from Marvel Comics Presents, you know, they were showing Wolverine's origin and how he was experimented on, and you know, that's when we had Wolverine with the big helmet, the
Yeah,
visor, and going out there butt ass naked and fighting a bear. That fight with the bear was an epic fight where, you know, if a person fought a bear in real life, that bear would knock the
yeah,
shit out of people. And to have a human being go toe to toe with a bear and win
yeah,
is saying something. And they drug it out, and it was an epic battle. However, in today's comics, that fight would have lasted at the most 2 panels,
yeah.
and then there would be a head rolling over on the ground, and then Wolverine would be running on to the next thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you don't have quite the
Storytelling.
yeah. There's not the love of the minute storytelling. I mean, you take a look at a lot of the movies I'm speaking of here, and yeah, there's a primary storyline, but there's just so much going on in the background as well. Like, and I'm not talking about Suburban Commando and stuff. I was talking about like They Live, and in the past we brought up like Little Shop of Horrors, things like that. Where it's teaching you so much more. So
Well, and storytelling in movies and in comic books, it's all changed. It has
yeah,
gotten hyper hyperactive, really. I mean, the attention span of a movie watcher anymore. Like if we sat down and watched Psycho, the
yeah.
original Psycho, we would be bored to tears because, you know, there's a lot of suspense, there's build up, there's character development. They
See, and
want you to feel the death.
those are the ones I watch. I watch that. I watch 1408, The Shining. You
But
know,
anymore, you can't. They don't have the ability to take that long to make you feel for the character. That's why in a lot of Disney movies, a parent dies or someone's an orphan. You're they do that to immediately
yeah.
draw sympathy towards the character and get you on their side and feeling for them almost immediately. Because if you had any type of build up, you're gonna lose part of your audience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, but anyway, so what did you have this week?
So, I've really been enjoying the Blood Hunt tie-in for Avengers, and that came out this week, and I was really wanting to read that. However, I've already done two tellings of it, and you don't need me to tell you a third time why I'm reading this book. Plus, we got the new X-Men series coming out, the first book after the whole island brouhaha,
Yeah.
and I figured that this would have been a good place to jump on, so I picked that up. Um, and it's a mixed bag for me. I'm a longtime reader, and I know that I'm pickier than I probably should be, but who isn't?
Hmm.
Um, Art wise, the way they drew Beast looked like he was made out of clay and it was starting to get warm. That there was
Yeah.
the way his face moved. It didn't look normal. It was a unique take on Beast. Anyway, they've gone back and they've gone back to his look from the late '70s, early '80s. The George Perez little Wolverine hairdo,
Yeah.
playful Beast, and I appreciate that. But they gave him this black circle around each eye to make it look a little more sunk in, I think.
Yeah.
And it was a little distracting, but there was a lot more expressiveness in the face also, so I could appreciate that. Um, but
I would
this,
have been. I would have found it interesting if they would have went way back on it and given him the Pip the Troll look, kind of.
or
Pre blue.
or the gray beast
Yeah.
era look.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
yeah, definitely. Like the pre-blue, because I mean, really, before they turned into blue, he really looked like Pip the Troll.
Pip the Troll. Okay, I thought you said Pip Patrol, and I didn't know what that
No,
was.
no, Pip from
Pip
as in
in yeah.
Warlock. Yeah,
Um, yeah. The cast for this, I was a little unsure about, but it is a mix of old and new and something in the middle, so that you kind of have a multi-generational team, so that at any point in time, if you had been an X-Men reader, you could pick up this book and go, hey, this was from the era where I started, and I
well,
can appreciate that.
yeah, and it looks like they basically turned magic into this era Psylocke. Because I mean, let's face it, back in the '90s, Psylocke's uniforms were physically impossible to have actually been hiding anything. And they're kind of doing the same thing with magic. It seems like you take a look at the negative space variant and stuff like that. I mean, it's like literally, it's like here you have little eyes, there's a little bit of arm, boobs. It's like it's so. They're going down that same route. They pick one character and they're over sexualizing.
Well, there are it's Chris Bichello ish type art where it's not a dead on realism.
Mm-hmm.
It's more expressive. There are artistic licenses that you could take with it, but there's a character who you see her arm and you could almost wrap your hand around her wrist,
Mm-hmm.
but then the glove that she is wearing is thicker on each side of the glove than the wrist itself.
Yeah.
And it's like she's wearing these ginormous, like,
Clown
gauntlets.
gloves. Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I guess what my question really comes back to on what I was saying there is this the way magic has always been portrayed?
well, it's funny you should mention that. For the longest time, when she first came out, she wore the New Mutants uniform, and they slowly had her having armor, appear on her when she would unleash her sword. And at one point, they switched to this manga-inspired, ginormous sword and all the goofy armor and headgear. And she had that for longer than I would care for. But then, like a year ago, they finally changed her outfit again to
Yeah.
where she was wearing like a gold uniform and she went back to having armor. The style of sword had changed. It got slimmer. It was more like a katana. And it was like an evolution. And I'm like, okay, still not the style I would like to see, but it's at least
Well, when did the amount of fabric start dwindling?
uh early 2000s.
No, on her specifically.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering because was she always that way from introduction, or because I mean, like I said, they've got her very much the same direction as Psylocke.
More like 2010. But anyway,
Yeah, because I mean, when you look at the older X-Men, you had Gray being the mom, you had Rogue being the
rebellious daughter.
rebellious teenager, you had Psylocke being the slut. As far as like it's just the way they were being drawn was to give you that specific outlook.
Right.
You know,
Typecast.
yeah, exactly. And I don't know. Maybe I just overthink it, but I'm not a big fan of, you know.
Magic in particular. They have given her. There have been a few times where they have made her super slutty, like during the Ten of Swords storyline that they did during the whole island thing. She was fighting someone. It's like, hey, you want to make out? And she was like asking people that, and it was just random, and they were basically making her slutty. And you could argue that she grew up in a demon hell. She grew up in limbo, so there is going to be corruption, and you could argue that some of the darker aspects crept into her soul and what have you. But we had moved on from that, and now she's reverting back, and I don't care for that.
And I guess that's where my question comes in on. Because it's not that I'm against, this direction. Because let's take a look at some of my other books I'm reading. Like, Pooh versus Bambi. Piglet is definitely not. I mean, she makes Psylocke's outfits and Magic's outfits look, just
Wholesome.
straight. Well, it makes it look like they're showing ankle or something. And so it's a whole different level, and so it's not that I'm against it. I'm against it when it's being done just for no apparent reason, I guess, in this case. Like you were saying, what was the reason for her running around asking people to make out, and stuff
Right.
like that.
Uh, but anyway, with the characters that we have here, I liked how they actually went back to some of the lesser known eras of the reading, and you can see that the writer had done his homework on the relationships between characters, because there were references to previous volumes and stuff that happened 10, 15 years ago. And I could appreciate the fact that you know we were kind of moving on but still keeping the history.
Yeah.
uh they are setting up base at an abandoned factory up in Alaska, and we lead off with the sheriff of the local town coming and inspecting the factory, and Beast is playing tour guide and explaining, what their purpose here is and why they're here. And, not only do you have the team that goes out on the field for,
Mm-hmm.
saving people and doing all these things, but they also have a roster of people that are more like the day to day. You have Glob Herman, who is growing food and doing
Yeah.
all sorts of hydroponic things, and they brought in Zorn, and he's their healer. Although that was a weird choice to have for a healer when they have people who specifically heal. Uh, but it's obvious that they were picking throughout the whole time period of the X-Men, and they do lean into the characterization. Beast is more welcoming and friendly and trying to be charming and try to get the humans on their side. And then they come into a room and Magneto's in there, and Magneto is staring down the human, and it's like, Beast is playing nice to you, and I'm here to do the opposite. And the police officer goes for her gun, and he's like, "You go for your gun. That shows that you don't trust me." And Beast even turns to Magneto and it's like, "Well, honestly, you've given her no reason to trust you the way you jumped on her almost immediately upon arrival." And he's like, "Well, I am the person that you people need me to be. I'm the person that force you to be better." He talked about how Cyclops became more of a tactician because he had to go up against Magneto. And Jean Grey, by fighting Magneto, developed herself so that she could house a cosmic entity. Bobby had became an Omega level mutant. And so they are definitely.
So they're Magneto's being turned into the Loki of the mutant world, basically. Then where they just did the Avenger Prime thing, and so without Loki, there is never an Avengers.
Well, I was viewing it more as kind of the tough love dad. I care, but this is how I'm gonna show it, is by making you become a better person. I'm not here to be your friend.
That's pretty much what the Avenger Prime thing did.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Not that I read it. But
Yeah.
anyway, a great characterization. They had different action beats throughout the story. Wolverine does make an appearance, and they do eventually have him addressing the whole situation. And spoiler, he's not joining this particular team, but we already knew that from all the advertisements.
Yeah.
Uh, so there were a lot of key points for building up the storyline, and I thought they did a really good job of giving an entry level where we're being introduced to characters, a situation. They're explaining the hows and the whys and where we're going from here. I also like that towards the end of the book, there's an editor, or the editor was explaining, hey,
Yeah.
welcome. This is the first step after Kuroka, and here's what we're looking at. Here's what's going to be coming ahead, and he was kind of giving you a feeler for what's to come without spoiling anything.
Yeah.
But I thought it was very well done.
Well, and we're going to be down to what? It's going to be the three main books, probably a Deadpool book, and a hand. Basically, we're going to get rid of what is it, like 20 books a month right now or something like that?
Honestly, I think we're only at like 12.
No, it was. I'm saying it was at like 20 something, wasn't it? With the fall of the house and rise of the house and the
Actually, at that point, they
sideways
stopped all
house
the other
and-
series. It was
Yeah.
like, but we're gonna have the 3 X-Men titles. We're gonna have Phoenix, Storm. There's gonna be a Dazzler book out.
Yeah.
They're doing a Wolverine miniseries.
Well, they've been pushing Dazzler pretty heavily. I mean, they're doing actually a crossover cover set with Dazzler on a bunch of other covers, and some of them are pretty hilarious. Like the Hulk one is great. The Hulk's in a skating ring.
I've
With
seen that one.
yeah, with Dazzler in the background. It's. I'm normally not a variant cover guy, but I enjoyed that one.
So far, I like where it's going. I'm curious to read more. The artwork, it wouldn't be my first go-to for style. And again, they redesigned all the characters, but Magic reverted to a previous incarnation. And it felt kind of... I didn't care for it in the fact that everybody else got a new design, like they're moving forward, and then Ileana is regressing.
It feels like some of the drawing and the way they're portraying him, just from an art standpoint, almost feels like that extreme X-Men type feel. Like especially you look at the way they're doing Juggernaut and Cyclops there. Man, that's got an extreme X-Men feel all over it.
Right. Where it's not so much
Or
trying...
was it Extreme X-Men or X-Men Extreme or...
They had Extreme X-Men at one point in time, and it was... Or like X-Force, it's more about trying to give you a feeling than actually convey a coherent thought,
Yeah.
And there is a little bit of that, but there's also humor in here, and there's a lot of thought about if you were setting up a team, you would want, a person that meets this need and this need and this need. And there is overlap on power sets. However, I do like that they even have moments where one mutant is teaching another. It's like, okay, if you try this and tweak it, you'll find that you have better results. And so it's still kind of doing that teaching thing that the school had always been all about.
Yeah.
So I could appreciate that.
I want
The
to see
editor,
somebody do that to Forge.
the
If
editor,
you just did this right, you'd be like, really?
I would love to see Forge and Doug Ramsey working on something where Doug's like, let me handle the programming of the language and what have you. You just work on making it function. But
I just want to see somebody
Tom
try to
Barrett's
tell
group-
them flat out, you're doing you could do that better. I mean, how do you tell somebody that is a technopath for all, basically that they're doing it wrong? It's kind of like
well,
like
and how
telling
do you
Cyclops-
develop that power? I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like you could go into the danger room and strip down a gun and rebuild it and enhance your power any.
I don't know. You look at they try to explain it a little bit in Sky High. I mean, it's not canon toward any of this,
Right.
but
Royal
Royal
Pain.
Pain. I mean, that was technopath, and basically what it turns into is what can your mind imagine? It's kind of like if you look at the different levels of civilizations, you start at. I mean, right now humanity is at level 0 civilization. This is like way out there, like weird sciencey stuff. We can imagine turning into a level 1 civilization, which is harnessing the entirety of all power that can be produced by the planet Earth. We can fathom that. We can fathom, the next one, which is, harnessing the power of the entire solar system, and so on and so forth. There comes a point though where it's like, can you imagine anything crazier than that? Well, no, we can't now, but when you're one step away from it, all of a sudden you can start imagining that crazier stuff that you couldn't even fathom before.
I'm picturing Forge in a black light room,
Yeah.
smoking weed just to expand his mind and get that moment from Half Baked. It's like, have you ever done it on weed?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna build this gun on weed.
Yeah, yeah. That or or going the opposite direction, which is Doug Fawcett. Doug Fawcett was the guy that was supposedly earning the most points to get into the good place, and like he would freak out and have like they go and visit the guy at one point during the Good Place series. And the guy steps on a snail, and they have like this full on burial, and they speak kind words. And then he ends up leaving to walk like for weeks on end to donate something in the snail's name. And it was all based on one night he got himself so incredibly high that he actually guessed the afterlife to like a 98% accuracy. And in doing so, he realized what he had to do to garner points to be able to get into the good place in the afterlife. And so it turned into an absolute psychosis.
Yikes.
Yeah. So like I said, opposite direction, but same concept.
So all in all, I know that each of the books is going to have a different flavor to it, and I can see that this is definitely a Cyclops approach, looking at it from a tactical and practical standpoint as far as, you need to establish a base, a solid team where you have overlap on powers, but
Yeah.
each genre is represented, it's this and that, what have you. Great characterization. Again, mostly it was the art, but what I was trying to say earlier was Tom Bevereau, who was a longtime Avengers editor for Marvel, is now going to be the head guy for the mutant books. And he was even talking about how this is a new experience for him, and he's coming in and taking it all in stride. And I would like to think that he's going to be the steady hand on the wheel to make sure that we kind of don't get out there the way we had been.
Well, that or they're just going to find a new way to do it.
Right. Honestly, Jonathan Hickman, I did not care for his take, and I'm glad he's off the books. I'm looking forward to the new direction that we're going and the new books that are coming out. It did get me to thinking, though, years and years ago, Wizard Magazine had done a thing where they were talking about building your own team. And they were talking about if you could take a character from any company and build your super team, what would be the team? And they said, you have to have a leader, you have to have a strong person, you have to have, the tactical person, you have to, meet all these different requirements. Who would you have?
It's the same as every team or every party out there. You look at, because the same thing applies to Dungeons and Dragons. Tank, healer, support, DPS, so on and so forth. It's the same exact thing going into this, because your strongman is your tank, your tactician is your wizard, and so on and so forth.
And, I would love to play that game where you sit down and just say, who would I want on my team? That would be a fun sandpit to play in, where you could just, if I were to sit down and build a team, there are certain characters that I would have to have. But, again, you also have to think about the direction that the book is going, because, this is going to be your more field-oriented, structured combat team.
See,
And
I'd
so
be
you
the
have,
wrong person to pick this stuff because I would be picking my entire team. Going back to the Sky High reference, my entire team would come out of the sidekicks class. I love some of those powers, man.
well, and we're gonna have the
Not
team
even
out of
attacking
New
guinea pigs.
Orleans, and I'm not sure what their focus is going to be on, but with
Mhm.
characters like Rogue, Gambit, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, is you can tell that it's going to have a different feel from this.
Yeah.
And we're also going to have an NYX book where it's going to have Laura Kinney, Wolverine, and other of the.
Okay.
It's going to be more focusing on.
That's the one that started in Dynamite or something like that, wasn't it? The Nick stuff.
Well, NYX originally came out as a mini series that focused on mutants in the inner city who didn't want to be part of the superhero universe. They just wanted to survive, and it just so happened that they had powers, and they ended up on the run from the police because of circumstances spinning out from their control.
Yeah.
And that's actually where we had first met Laura Kinney. She was an underage prostitute that would cut herself, and it
That
turned out that
explains a lot of the covers that I saw.
yeah,
Because they were kind of, some of them were kind of a little awkward.
they were, but that was for a reason. And it turned out that she was, when you flesh out her history, she was actually created to be this ultimate weapon, and they designed her so that she could infiltrate in this area or that area, and so they made her versatile, but it was never anything just plain and simple innocent. It was always trying to get you into the dingiest, grotesque environments to get to the heart of, a deeper problem.
Yeah.
So, she's going to return to an NYX title showing mutants in the inner city, and so they're tackling this from different genres or different aspects, and I can appreciate that they're not all doing the same type of storyline, but you can kind of see the versatility of the mutants in the Marvel universe.
Right on.
So, all in all,
hopefully it gets a little bit better going forward. Then.
right. Get a new artist, and I'm set.
There you go. All right.
All right. Well, that's my save for the week.
About all I had for the week. I'm back to getting ready for our visits and go from there.
We'll go from there. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. And as always, you know where to find us. Thank you and have a good night.